Good afternoon, Europe, good morning, America, or good evening in Asia, and welcome to this session. My name is Sultan Shifa. Today I'll be presenting you about the common tasks solved within a large organization like a bank with DB Power Studio. Before I go to the details and explain the focus of this presentation, let me say some words about the typical customer profile and the challenges they are facing. Big enterprises like this bank are developing and managing databases distributed across the world, people working in different time zones. The challenge for DB managers is not only to deliver the right software and licenses, but also to keep the license costs as minimum as possible. As you see, more than 2,000 developers need to deliver applications in months or even weeks in a lean and agile environment, and high-priced 40 DBAs to keep the systems running. The challenge for DBA managers is to effectively use these expert DBAs rather than spending their time on pesky requests and problems that could be handled by less expensive employees. They're also supporting more than 1,200 databases, and I know some enterprises even having thousands of databases to meet those growing business demands. And finally, they need to manage and support heterogeneous database platforms from different vendors like Oracle, MS SQL, DB2LUW, DB2ZOS, Sybase, MySQL. Let me go to the third slide. So we're going to talk about the business and technical values of DB Power Studio for the DBA team. Just for the matter of explaining, DB Power Studio is just a tool set consisting of DB Artisan for database administration, database change manager for managing changes in a database, and DB Optimizer for performance tuning and SQL optimization. We'll be talking about some of them later in the presentation, but my main focus today in the agenda is to show you the business and technical values and how the tools are used to solve the common DBA tasks below. As you know, DBMS technology has improved in automation over the years, but provisioning and administering databases remains always a bottleneck, largely because of lack of DBAs and system resources, or you have a limited IT budgets, or the IT infrastructure is too complex today. Hence, maximizing DB productivity and being proactive in database management are very key for each organization. So in the next minutes, we'll be discussing how to improve the DBA productivity in the first place. The second set of tasks of DBAs are just to monitor and analyze the major areas of performance, mainly on databases, with system and applications. And another very important job of the DBA is to maintain the databases. The last key part of the DBA work is also the collaboration with people and the business. Here we will discuss how the integrated tools help the DBA to improve the teamwork within the enterprise. So let's go to the slide 4. Maximizing DBA productivity for proactive database management. So one of the key questions of the bank was, how can we effectively manage more than 1,200 data sources from different vendors and different DBMS versions as well across the world? So in order to demonstrate this one, I would like to switch to just a product and do a short demo how this can be realized with DB Artisan, with the Explorer view, data source management, node filtering, and SQL editor. So I'm going to switch now to DB Artisan and just to demonstrate how it looks like. The very first thing what you see here is the Explorer view. So one of the bank requirements was to have a functionality showing them an overview or high-level view of all the managed data sources with capability to drill down and obtain more specific information on heterogeneous database management systems. As we see here, the tool supports DB2LUW, DB2ZOS, Interbase, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, Oracle, Sybase IQ, Sybase Service, ISE Service, Teradata, even big data, Hive, JDBC drivers. So as you see, all the heterogeneous database management systems are supported with this Explorer view in the first place. And another requirement was to have a configurable summary view. That means they can group databases logically by function, let's say by business, operating system, by version, to provide the best view for their administrative requirements. As you see here, you can have, for example, database located in Indonesia, where it's kind of type of application is SAP. You can have different versions. You can have something like development areas, QA areas, or defining different Toronto servers. This is my databases, my Microsoft SQL servers located in London and Rome, and the same thing for my Oracle databases wherever I'm located into. And the landing page itself, when I'm just landing on an Oracle database, it shows me a lot of vital information about the database, about the instance time, the startup time, host name, current sessions, current logs. Do I have blocked sessions? What kind of log mode is it? Or cache advice, and all kind of this information. And it shows me also the distribution of my SGA configuration in my Oracle database. If I just connect to my machine, let's say to my Microsoft SQL machine, the same kind of look and feel, the same kind of information, number of databases, blocked sessions are all actually available. If I go under performance, I can even see the logs, blocking log, system IO, wait, top SQL, and so on. So say that the customer also wanted to have a database browsing capabilities. I mean, here DBA solves this task for them, providing a database browser as a link where they can perform all administration tasks just from one central window. It has not only this consolidated view of all managed databases, but also any database can be drilled down to use database schema objects as well. If I let's say now on my Microsoft SQL, I can just go down into my gym database, look under the schema, under the DBO, the type of tables are available here, down here, the type of foreign key, check constraints, and so on. And at the same time, I can also just drill down to my Oracle, do the same stuff, and walk through, for example, the another gym tables, which are also available in this system with the primary keys, the packages, procedures, every object actually which is available. So it's not just browsing the objects, but also the key thing is, which is just about how can I simply create a trigger. So the tool walks you through the creation process of a trigger without detailed knowledge of Oracle. If you're a junior DBA, for example, and a DB2 person, and you would like to do something in Microsoft SQL or Oracle, you have actually to know how triggers are set up. So you just to pick up what is the parent schema, what is the parent name, so what is this the name for which schema does it exist. You can just put some names, and when is it after or before. You go into the details and insert updates. So you don't need to know all this stuff. The tool walks you through the creation process of anything, whatever you would like to do. If I'm on tables, I just right click on the table. I see what I can do. I can convert it to partition, create likes, look into the object properties, rename, shrink, and all what you can imagine can be done with Oracle can be done on this machine as well. The same stuff applies when I'm on Microsoft SQL table. I don't need to worry about how things are done in these databases. So what I need just to know is I would like to go to any database and walk through DBO and look into the tables. I don't know if there are procedures. I look the procedures, right click, I see. I can look into them, rename them, execute it, or whatever jobs necessary to extract it, or migrate it, or create a report out of it, or to debug a procedure. All these functionalities are all available just for object management. From productivity perspective, you can also bookmark objects. That means each DBA can define his bookmarks at any level. to easily access the commonly used objects and data sources without the need to scroll down. That means if I'm always working with this database, I can just create a bookmark and have it this name. Once I have this name, this friendly book name, so I can just access it actually easily from my bookmarks. Another key thing, what was very important for the customer, was data source management. So DBA Artisan is able to provide a central location for data sources so that developers in DBAs do not need necessarily to build up all the data sources manually. So there's an option under tools, options, where can be set within the bank. It has been set as a network shared data source catalog. So this location is shared across the bank, and when the user logs in, it gets all the data sources which has been defined. But also other options of using data sources where you can just manage data sources. You can select all, for example, and import them or export them. A lot of functionalities are also available for data source management. You can also discover data sources from TNS names or SQL INI files and so on. Another factor, in terms of productivity, what customer was asking was the ability to manage users and permissions in order to control access to database. Is in this part not a DBA task. They say it is just mainly system administration task, so they asked us to filter out this functionality for the DBAs from the graphical user interface. And Embarcadero made this the requirement, just adding a node and object filtering here. If you look under filters, we are able to have a node filter saying, oh, on my Oracle databases, we are not managing security, so the security is now removed out of this one. So, or we say only for Microsoft, we don't do security and remove it. It means here in the graphical user interface, people do not see any security management anymore. These are just some functionalities just to help understand changing it graphical interface. What a lot of people actually use is also really working with the SQL editor. Most of the time you are importing, you are doing a select and exporting the result. But beyond that, I mean, if you look into the right, you have a lot of, you can paste the SQL syntax, for example. SQL syntax is available here for SQL commands, for SQL functions, which you can just take. And what you have to do a casting, use to paste it, expression as data type, and so on. Not only that one, another code snippet which is also important is paste SQL statement. Sometimes I don't know the structure, and I pick up just some kind of tables, and I select some columns, and I do a kind of paste statement. So I have this statement, and I can run just without knowing any structure of the database, just create a simple and very fast SQL statements. So when you're working with select statements or with procedures, with scripts and files, sometimes it's very helpful is the script or the file execution facility to be next to the database search facility as well. And the script execution facility allows you just to copy and paste. Let me just go out of this one. Let me do copy, Control C. Let me go into tools and copy that select statement or any kind of statement and define different targets. That means you can select different target data sources to execute the script against. That means it could be the same database, it could be different database versions as well, so that you can run, for example, one script against 10 or 12 or 20 SQL Server machines at the same time. And the output could be a graphical output, or it can also be just a file output, just to put in certain directory as an HTML file or as a tab limited file, or different kinds of formats are supported. And when you are doing often this kind of batch scripts, you can just put it also in a batch script. You can have, if I say, let's say as an output, a file output in a directory, you can also have job descriptions, email addresses where this information is going to be set for you. So a lot of helpful functionalities within here. So let's go back to my slides again. and look into the next step. So this is about real-time performance monitoring. DBS needs the ability to display all outstanding database alerts. They would like to monitor all database on an ongoing real-time basis for issues and report just via an admin tool, so in a timely fashion. So in this aspect, they need an overview of the current performance or operational alerts. Here, DBA Artisan delivers that also in a different way. If I go back to DBA Artisan we have different options to do that as well. If you look into Oracle, for example, this is my Oracle database. I have a tool known as Database Monitor, so you can monitor your database. You can see what are the active sessions, what are the inactive sessions, and what are the red ones would show up actually as let's say actions or sessions where I have, let's say, log problems or where I have actually issues. So here we can look into the processes, we can look into the long operations, which long operations are taking place, what are the logs, who is blocking whom, for example, this kind of information. I can also go back to the right and say, I would like to understand the holding SQL cache coming in front, so that you can move it, for example, to this area and see those objects maybe in the front part. Not only that, you can look into the data dictionary cache, general statistics, library cache, whatever actually basically you need to know. So if I have an active SQL statement which I can select anywhere, I can look also into the session information. I can see the show SQL. I can look into the plan if there is a SQL statement. I can kill the session. But more important is actually also to look into the session information as well to see which user is it. So I can just pick up a user and look at the session ID, statistical details, what it is waiting for, what is the current SQL actually this user is running. So I don't have any active machines here to show you, but if a user is connected, and then you can see different processes, SGA processes, user sessions, tracing results, and so on. Another option is to use the so-called performance analyst. Within DBA Artisan, we have 3 analysts: space analyst, capacity analyst, and performance analyst. For each database, you can use the performance analyst. For example, the performance analyst shows you a summary of outstanding errors, warnings based on also configurable measurements for investigation. If we start just from the alerts, that means this is just a general home window where we see the key ratio analysis, SQLs, which are causing the high CPU, high I/O, and so on. But to start with, let me start with the alerts. So alert window shows me where the alerts are coming from, category memory, home, users, CPU parts ratio, these statistics, the value, the explanation. So these are all already predefined thresholds in the system. To maintain that, you can, if you right click, you can go to the applicable page. You can have options page where you have how do you like to get the alarms, and very important is actually the threshold maintenance, where for example for Oracle here we have certain templates which we give you, and then this is actually something which I have defined, and I say if top IO hog is greater than 75%, it is a very critical one and show me warning. So these things can be defined, and then DBS can be notified actually when things come up in your data center, look into the problems and analyze them. So performance analyst helps you to drill down into database alerts and finding actually, so where is this problem coming from? That means you can just select also the applicable page as well. So from the objects page, you can see, for example, what are the top contentions. So getting back to the home view, what you see down here is the key ratio analysis, the SQL analysis, which SQL is causing the highest I/O, the highest logical I/O. In terms of workload analysis, which user SID is actually having the top physical I/O, logical, memory, CPU processes. In the terms of bottleneck analysis, which wait events, which system bottlenecks are occurring in my system, And I see also over time range how many waiting sessions I have not waiting sessions. In terms of storage, we see the problem table spaces and object bottlenecks in terms of current object blocks, inquiry waits, free list waits. Very powerful information graphically where you grab that data and use it. And the problem table spaces, I have a table space problem. If I want to see more details, I go into the details. Now it takes me actually into the view of the space analysis, and I look into, I can just sort it maybe based on the %free, and if I have a problem with the table space, I can just manage it with DBA Artisan. This is, I think, the beauty of the product. You don't need an additional product. You just open it with DBA Artisan and fix that issue with that one if it is a certain configurable database, for example. You can manage it with DBA Artisan as well. So it's not only the home view. You can go in detail and analyze home, buffer cache, buffer pool, latch activities. In terms of I/O, you can analyze table data file, rollback, table IOs. In terms of space, table space details, this is where we were type of space fragmentations if they occur. In terms of objects, we can analyze hot objects, invalid objects, object summary, table and index contentions. In terms of users, what are the top sessions which are causing me actually trouble, which are hogging my database, or system weights and session weights. In terms of OS, you can also dig into the operating system and see, let me connect to this database and grab those information based on the OS data. That means what is the CPU usage, performance, memory usage on the machine. If the user is allowed to access that one, you can just connect and grab that data as well and have that information if it is needed. That means you need an administrative access to the machine, and the machine is on, you get to grab get information as well. In terms of what is very interesting is also is the session weights actually, which I get from a database. So this was the result actually from the top I/O processes, the top memory processes, which are the top sessions. You can look also on the system weights, which are occurring in the system, or the session weights based on that user data. Not only that one, but also sometimes it's also important to understand the response time. So what is the response time for the current workload, the database CPU time, database idle time, or you can just look more in details, response time per transaction, or the last hour CPU usage per second, for example. If I go back and say, what is the database CPU time ratio for the last hour, it shows me the peaks, what these things are happening, and analyze the database CPU time ratio based on the time base. Of course, you can also look into the system bottlenecks, session bottlenecks, wait histograms, and so on. The performance analyst is a very powerful feature, helping DBAs to be more proactive by diagnosing and resolving problems quickly and effectively. So next to that one, getting back to my presentation, let's talk about application level analysis with DBA Optimizer. Mostly the OS or the database is not the bottleneck, but bad performance could be the issue for a long response time. So in order to analyze this kind of issues, DBAs might use, but in this part usually often used to profile the database, our tool which is known as DBA Optimizer, to see what is really the real cause or the root cause of the high CPU usage, the high physical I/O, high logical reads, or to analyze the weight events of the database. So let me show you some screenshots so that you see what we mean with profiling a database. And instead of using textual information, you can also use a graphical interface to find out what the database is actually doing. Databases are either reading or writing, having a lot of I/O, or they are computing, they're using CPU, or they are waiting for something. That means to find out all this in a graphical way, it is, I think, graphical representation is the one which helps you to profile a database and find out what is going on in my database. So DBAs can run, for example, if they hear somebody calls them and they have a call and say, now we have a problem, we have high physical reads or logical read, what is going on in the database? You start profiling the database and find out what is the root cause of that. Once you get that graphical interface, you can drill into that and say, what are the SQL statements having the highest DB activity? So which are the events causing the most of the database time is spending on, or which sessions are responsible for that? So once you get this information, then it is easy, just to drill down and find out, to tune that SQL and find out the root cause of the problem. So DB Optimizer allows you not only to profile the database and find what the database is doing. Next slide shows how the tuning works. So you can tune either SQL statements, which you have captured from profiling session, or you can also use procedures or triggers. You can run them and then get that select statement to tune as well. Or you can also directly connect to the system global area SGA of Oracle and grab the data of what are the top SQL sessions in the SGA, and I can start tuning them. So what we do with tuning is actually taking that SQL statement and executing it in different hints or with different execution paths. So these execution paths, we show you the result of this execution paths based on the cost, based on the elapsed time, based on the physical rates, logical rates, or CPU time spent, so that you can select those statements. That means we are also doing SQL rewriting, we are doing also having different execution paths to find out, the right execution path for the optimizer of Oracle or Microsoft SQL or Sybase or DB2, whatever you have in your database area. So once you get those statements, you can also see more in detail. That means a kind of index analysis and visual SQL tuning. So the index analysis component takes a SQL statement and analyzes and tells you which indexes are used, which indexes could be potentially used. It would tell you which indexes are not used at all, or which indexes you should use. It is suggesting, for example, the yellow ones are those which is suggesting maybe you should use an index on this one to improve the performance of the database. So we do index analysis, we do, of course, table statistics, column statistics, histograms are also done through the tool to show you if we are having stale statistics or not. What you see on the right side is a visual SQL tuning. This is, I think, a unique feature which we have in DB Optimizer, because it helps you to visualize your SQL statement. It shows you the tables involved in all those joins. If you have even a view calling another view, you can imagine how complex it could be. So we show you the number of rows in each table and the number of joined tables. We show you also graphically the explain plan, where is the hash join going on, where is a merge join going on. So just mostly very difficult to understand explain plans, the textual ones. So we allow you to have a visual SQL tuning, a very, very powerful tool actually in index and application analysis. So let me go to the next slide. This is more on maintaining databases. I'll pick up some of the DBA tasks which I would like to show you. So one of the common maintenance jobs is schema migration, data migration. As a DBA, you have to move schema maybe or data from production to development area, or you might need to migrate your databases from one version to another one. So let me show you some functionalities in DB Artisan in terms of migration. You can migrate actually. If I take into a user, I can just pick up a user and just migrate that user. That means create a user, create all the objects of that user. So you can move it, let's say, into another system. That means if you have a production system here and I would like to create a QA machine or a development machine with the same user, you can do it that way. You can even do cross-platform migration as well. So, but we have also a utility called schema migration. You can perform a new migration. You can pick up the database, the source database, as a target database. It could be any database, but just for simplicity, I'm just taking the same database here on this side as well. You can select the schemas I'm interested in, pick up the schema. I would like to do, here I have pre-selected some tables, and select all, let's say select the tables, and select the types which are involved within. I can say next. Here I have some options to script, if, for example, drop statements, if I need them to have them a different group, let's say, then the object properties. You can even change the change owner. For example, I would like to do Franklin Data U is a new owner, which is, that means I'm rewriting the users as well. You have other table ways of doing it, or just creating the tables. You can also move the data either using insert statements or data copy. That means yeah, just a bulk copy is done. Just we can specify if it is a data copy, the batch size can be defined. Or you can say, just for this simple example, just have an insert statement, because I would like to create a script. I don't want to run it as it is, but I would like to create a script. So I'm creating a script for this one. Data movement is okay. And you can also do kind of analyze statistics. I mean, before I finish it, I would like to do compute statistics. That means, or when the data is moved, I would like also to do statistical analysis as well. So I say next. The next job is actually just to create the script. When I say finish, actually the process of starting, I mean, just creating the script will be started, and then this process might take just some minutes. As you see, the migration operation is now complete. If I like, I can create the report. That means I can have an HTML report, how it looks like. But in this step, I would like just to continue. So what I see is a very, very long SQL statement. If I go to the end, then I don't know how long it is. It is around, go to the end. It is 5,000 lines created. I mean, we create also the types first before we create the tables. We move the data and move, I mean, all the privileges are set up, and all this kind of migration can be done just in your fingertips. So migration is one of the options what we do. But besides migration, people are asking sometimes, you know, you can do also a lot of utilities. You can have data pump, data export, import, data load, unload, and other kinds of information, session information. So many functionalities available for Oracle can be used here if I'm connected to Microsoft SQL Server. Or also we have also database manager, database backup, restore, database monitor, DBCC. All these kind of functionalities are also available for this one. If it is DB2, if there are no functionalities, we do also sometimes a system call into the DB2 to find out if there are no utilities available. So there are a lot of functionalities available for the DBAs to work actually very actively in the system as well. So the next topic I'm going to talk about is about maybe storage analysis, space analysis. This is also some aspect which a lot of customers are daily using. They would like to report on or identify object size, configuration, space management. They would like to look into file, table space, segment management, to check fragmentation. So for this, I'm going to show you one tool with the user mainly. This is what we call space analyst. So the space analyst, under the overview, will see the database overview, the storage person, the fragmentation index, the table space, and so on. But I would like to show you the tables. So here I see under tables, I have some block inefficient stuff. I mean, I've just refreshed and show me the tables with inefficient block usage, because I would like to do a kind of reorganization, and I would like to find out in this database why it is, which tables are with an efficient block state. I mean, I can just sort it maybe based on the table space. And what is interesting is you can right click and then just have either do analyze, it means create statistics, estimate the size, or just create a new organization. That means it walks you through the tool, standard object reorganization or analyst reorganization. This is something, a batch job that can be run every time. And it just walks them through different object status, and we create finally a script which can be run were scheduled to be done somewhere else at another time. One thing which is also important in terms of Oracle is, which I didn't mention here, is under instance you can manage the configuration Oracle jobs. If you have scheduler jobs, DBMS schedule, for example, you can just right click and create actually a DBMS job schedule. You don't need to worry how to do it. I mean, you just define the owners and you define the scripts, and you have there the DBMS schedule jobs. So other functionality is also available, which I didn't mention, forgot to mention before. So in terms of storage analysis, rework, block inefficiencies can be done. One thing which is very important is managing changes, but I don't want to go in detail into this one. If there is something constant that is change, your schema changes, data changes, the configuration parameters of a database change. So here we have a tool, what we call is DB Chain Manager, helping the DBAs in this bank to build a baseline of the schema and configuration parameters at a certain time, or to sync schema data and configuration parameters between archiving to archives, or you can compare archive to a live or a live to live, between development areas, QA, production database, and to roll out database changes in the system. So this bank is using this tool actually to roll out changes across development, QA, in production, but I don't want to go in detail. But this is DB Chain Manager, which helps you to synchronize schema data and configuration parameters with the tool. So one thing which I didn't mention was a lot of utilities are available: importing, exporting, loading, scheduler, and so on, which are important, I mean, for the maintenance of the database. So documentation of database baselines. So here, if I go back to any stuff, what we can do is, under utilities, we have a so-called schema publication. This allows you to create a baseline, means to document the whole database and create an HTML documentation of the whole database. That means a very useful reporting feature to create baselines just before patching a system or making changes to a database. This is just a new publication that we define what you would like to do, and finally what we do is just creating a publication or just an HTML report of the system we are working with. So the last topic I would like to mention now is about the team collaboration aspect. Collaboration with other team members is very key for DBAs. They do not work alone. They are involved daily in many data warehouse, master data management, BI, data integration projects. They have to understand the business data, the data processes, the security classifications, the metadata behind the database as well. So what we provide them now is integration with the so-called team server. This is a tool we have provided. It's the coolest and newest feature what we have now. Let me show you how it works with DB Artisan. DB Artisan has the so-called team server. The team server is actually a collaborative web portal for storing your technical data, your metadata, your business metadata, your data sources, and so on. So DBAs are now able to look into those data sources and to see what kind of information is stored in my data sources. What is it used for finance? Is it an SAP application? What kind of licenses are we having in those data sources? So what does this technical data mean? What is the meta? What is the business definition behind it? So that the people know the processes behind this data and understand also the data governance policies to protect that data. So here we have, for example, the Oracle database. You can write a comment. It is just a kind of a SharePoint kind of tool with which the team can communicate, ask questions, having a like, a reply, having a picture. You have your followers, people following you, for example. What I'm following, I can follow, if I click on this one, I can also take into a browser-like kind of approach if I log on just as a normal user, and I can look into, for example, into my data sources. So the data source, I have a database here, Dallas, where I have this kind of database. So what is the information behind it? Where is it the production? Where is this used? What is the definitions? So what is the length of data retention? Am I monitoring it? I'm just looking into the health index of this information. Not only that, when you can see also what are the related entity relationship models, the technical value, what kind of business terms are actually behind this information. I can look into different business terms and look into, so what does it mean, for example, what is this kind of policy about? So you can look into the business definitions as well. A very good, powerful collaboration utility which can be shared from DBA perspective as well, which is also included actually in the as a team server functionality within DB Artisan as well. So the last 2 points I would like to mention are share profiled results. This is what I would like to say here is, as we saw in DB Optimizer before, the result of a profiled and tuned statements can be saved and shared among the team, so that DBA can find a problem and send it to the developers, and developer can start profiling and tuning that stuff. So you can share that kind of information with DB Optimizer, a powerful feature for team collaboration. And DDL extraction is, I think, mainly a job of the DBA, maybe to extract the database and send those DDLs to the developers. They can build up maybe their own system. So a lot of team collaboration is also possible with Embarcadero tools as well. Just to sum up, today the bank is able to support effectively thousands of databases to meet the growing business demand, despite the need to support lean and agile application development initiatives. And the toolsets help them each and every day to monitor and optimize the performance of their database, and of course to increase their earnings and savings. And from the perspective of managers of the database administrators, they use now the high-priced resources to maintain and keep their systems running effectively and automatically save costs. And DBAs can share the central platform to share technical and business metadata via the collaboration platform Team Server. So as a result, they remain competitive and deliver improved services in the age of the customer. I think our time is limited, and I will end up this session here, and I would like to pass the floor to the host for question and answers. Thank you so much.
First was a statement actually by David. Most companies that have big data requirements are also large companies. We are a typical small company in the mineral exploration business. We have large data requirements, many millions of records per project, but a typical small company budget. I'm waiting for the day when I can get solutions within my minuscule budget, but David says he's not holding his breath, so okay. But thanks for that. Sebastian was asking, does it automate the user load and support seamless migration between our DBMS major versions? I assume it integrates well with the Embarcadero modeling collaboration portal. And Sultan replied, migration between DBMS platforms is supported well. I don't know if, Sultan, you want to add any?
I think migration is one of the key jobs you are doing. I mean, you can migrate between different database platforms. Microsoft SQL, a lot of people are moving, for example, to Sybase, or from Sybase to Microsoft SQL. It is, I mean, an easy migration. I mean, just moving the tables, indexes, and so on is a very easy job. But when it comes, for example, to T-SQL to PLSQL conversion, this is something we do not do. But when it comes into objects, I mean, the major type of migration is supported. Not only DB Artisan, as it is mentioned, Studio is also a tool that can be used in your process of change management, data modeling, and moving your DDL, for example, from Studio to the development environment or to DBA environment as well.
Steve is asking, does DB Artisan work with SQL 2914? Oh, sorry, SQL 2014. Oh, the versus ANSI SQL 92 or whatever. Do you know, Sultan, about the latest SQL language?
I don't know which one it is, but it is maybe they mean 2014, Microsoft SQL Server 2014. This is maybe what this is asking. Yeah, I mean, currently Microsoft SQL Server 2014 is supported in Studio, and we'll be supporting it, I think, soon also in DB Artisan. I think Oz could say maybe something for that. when the next versions are coming up.
I see. Yeah, he's saying latest Microsoft SQL 2014.
Yeah, Microsoft SQL Server 2014 is many. How does Power Studio's license it is a question. So there is Power Studio is there are two different editions, and there's a DBA edition and then a developer edition. In the DBA edition, you have DB Artisan, DB Change Manager, and DB Power Studio. It is really, from price point of view, a very low price product. That means everybody could buy and use it, even for smaller companies.
And Oz or West, is it a user license or is there a network license that someone can choose? I think there's several different types of licenses, right?
Yes, we support basically workstation licenses, named user licenses, and concurrent licenses. So we're very flexible in the licensing technology we are providing. And the licensing server comes with the from Embarcadero itself.
Yep. And Mohammed, who's coming up in the next presentation, shared a link in the Q&A to the DB Artisan current DBMS support list, so as far as official support. So Jack asked the question, do you charge per instance? Is that per user, per database you
Yes. Yeah, you can. It is charged actually per user. If you buy a workstation license, you can manage thousands of Oracle, thousands of Microsoft SQL Server. It depends upon the type of license you buy. If you buy, let's say, DB Power Studio only for Oracle, you can manage only Oracle, all instances. I mean, thousands of instances. But you can also buy a multi-platform version, so where you we're supporting actually cross-platform.
And in that case, as you said, multi-platform in the database sense means Oracle, DB2.
Yes.
Versus Windows, Linux, ZOS, whatever. Okay.
It is not based on an instance, or it is not based on CPU or something like that. It's just based on the user license.
Jack's asking, is there a pricing chart? Oz, West, Sultan, Mohammed, I'm not sure about pricing. They should contact the sales office.
Contact sales, that is, I think, the best one.